Sally Auberg of Carmel Art Association.
Good evening, and I'm here to welcome you to the Carmel Art Association. I also want to thank Denise Estrada for providing all of the beautiful food and drink and flowers tonight. I couldn't believe it. I want to remind you that you're in a 97-year-old association's building. I gave everybody a copy of our March catalog. This is the only month of the year, we do it every year, that a person can take the catalog home with them and thereby take everything that's on the walls home with them. And the only ones that would be missing, they'll still be in the catalog, but 22 of them in the last 15 days have already sold and left the building. But we put up other pieces in their place by the same artists. And on your seats, besides the catalog, there's a little quick Carmel Art Association by the numbers. If you didn't get one, I've got plenty of extra copies here. I'll pass them to you. And I guess I'll just close by saying that the one thing that everyone always asks me is who were the 10 most famous artists that came out of this association. So I'm going to tell you, someday I'll get it onto that sheet. Salvador Dali, most people are aware that he was a member. Max Beckmann, we only just discovered in the last 7 months. He was a famous German expressionist who was considered decadent, and he fled just in time and got to Holland and then England and then New York and then ended here with us. I was stunned to find that out. Sam Francis was also with us, partly because he was posted at Fort Ord. Albert Paley, who's still alive, is about to be crowned one of the top 3 sculptors in the whole world in a few days. And Joan Savo was another member, Maxine Albro, Percy Gray, Paul Mays. I could go on and on. Armin Hansen, Paul Whitman. Yes?
And your first show at the Seven Arts Building,
Yes?
yeah, was Happy Fortune.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Yeah, very important figure with us. Okay, I'm handing the mic over to
Mimi.
Yes.
Yes. So, thank you, Sally. And I want to really thank them for amazing facility. So I am Mimi Sheridan. For people who don't know, I've been the president of AMAP for the last few years. I previously worked, I was an architectural historian who worked as a consultant for many years in the Seattle area. And I've been doing a lot of history research and things like that since I moved to Monterey about 8 years ago. First of all, I would like to thank everyone for coming and introduce our board members. A number of them are here. Nancy Runyon, the treasurer and one of the founders of AMAP, you probably all know. Jeff Beckham and Judy McMullen is here. Yeah. She lives in Carmel. Denise Estrada lives in Salinas, and there's Sal Munoz in Salinas. Now, Dr. Regan Neutra couldn't come tonight because he is speaking at a conference in Portugal this week. So, yes, right, typical. He really, I can't believe, I saw his wife this afternoon and she said she just was too tired to go to Portugal. She's, I think, barely recovered from their trip to Vienna when she got COVID. But anyway, and James Perry wasn't able to be here tonight. He's with the Monterey County Historical Society. I wanted to give just a brief update on preservation around the county. There isn't, as far as I can tell, a great deal happening right now, but there are several projects that we're following to see what's happening. One is, you've all heard of, is the Flanders Mansion. Obviously, we are interested in preserving the building. We're not interested in getting involved with disputes with the neighbors. And so we're just waiting until there is a proposal, an actual proposal to the city to see what happens there. The Monterey Museum of Art is planning a major renovation, and again, we're waiting to see what's going to happen there and keeping a close eye on it. We're not sure what's going on and how extensive they want it to be. We understand they want to destroy the major gallery. If you've been in there, it has the wooden beams, the beam ceiling. That is really a character-defining feature of the building. Another one that's not quite well known is the Los Coches Adobe in Soledad. And there are some people talking about doing something there. But that's sort of like what it is, you know? Like,
It's been that way for 15 years.
yeah, right. Well, I think Nancy says it's been longer than that they've been talking about.
Well, yes, because the same person actually was part of a proposal to restore Las Coches and build something adjacent to it in the 1970s.
Yes.
So I think he's feeling like he has to do it now.
So anyway, we're watching that. I think he has met with the city, but we don't know what's happened. And then there was one unfortunate thing that we had talked to people about was the Carmel Athletic Club in Carmel Valley, which burned suddenly about 3 weeks ago. It suddenly burned down, so that's a loss. We were not sure what could be done with it. It perhaps could have been moved, it could have found a new owner, but it was sort of just in limbo until again it was burned down. Now, there are things happening in Salinas, and Denise was going to talk just briefly about our east side group here, because one of my goals is to break the lettuce curtain, because there's really a lot going on in Salinas, and it's something that we pay attention to, and we go over there, the board members go over there and keep in close touch with Sal and Denise and also Michael Mascott, and so I want to just talk about that a little bit.
Okay. Historically, Salinas really hasn't had an appreciation of its historic buildings. There aren't many left, but Heritage Park, which is near the Amtrak train station and the historic center of Salinas, now has a collection of buildings. The California Welcome Center is kind of the centerpiece there in the old Southern Pacific Freight Building. From 1873, we have the depot, we have the Railroad Museum, and we have the first mayor's house. So we're proud of the work that's going on there. Finally, our new city council and our council members, and I think Sal would agree with me, seem to be more inclined to understand not only the historic value, but the economic value of preserving our historic buildings. So going along with that, we're excited. We are looking at some funding sources. We're talking to Zoe Lofgren and others, people who hopefully will have some pull to help us continue making that a good center of town. Exciting news, and Michael Maz guy's here, so, and Sal, both of them have served for a long time on the Historic Resource Board, but I'm gonna let Michael say a few words about kind of a new breakthrough we've had in terms of things that are coming up. So Michael, I'm gonna give you the microphone for a minute here.
Impromptu here, huh? Yeah, it's really exciting. When you go through Salinas and into some of the historic neighborhoods, you're curious about the architecture, the people who lived here, how it all happened. And you know, the '89 survey, thanks to Kent and all others involved with it, was our beginning. And now we finally have the funding. We're moving forward with a much wider net to identify what's there. And with that information, we'll all become more educated. So it's really an exciting time for Salinas to move forward with this.
All right, so good things happening in Salinas, long overdue. I'll pass it back to you. You're gonna take a chat. Okay.
Well, I was just about to sneeze.
Okay, well, I'll let you continue.
Well, but no, hold on. Could you do the elections? I forgot to ask.
Oh, all right, sure.
So, So we have our next item on the agenda is the board elections. And I forgot to ask Jeff. Nancy was going to do it, then we said that Jeff should, but I forgot to tell him that. So
Very well, no
the
problem.
two people running this slate are myself and Denise. And I do want to put something out there, is if we would love to have more board members, and if anyone is interested, if you contact any of us, we would be glad to talk to you. We
Very much
meet
so.
by Zoom when needed.
Or speak up tonight and join us.
Yes.
Well,
Perfect, tonight's a great time.
yeah, tonight's a
to join.
perfect, yes. So I wouldn't necessarily vote on you right now, but which I've seen done. But yeah, if you let us know, because it is a good board, and as I said, we do meet as needed and on Zoom, so you don't have to drive across the county, but it's a really good way to get to know about the issues throughout the county and what can be done about things.
And
So
and
Jeff-
we've had a very good success at different times during our while we've been going, as Nancy can attest as one of the earliest members. We fought and won against the Navy by being able to stop them from demolishing the final part of the Hotel Del Monte, the wings that you still see there. We also fought and won against the Catholic Church, who wanted to tear down the Marsh building and turn it into a parking lot for the Royal Presidio Chapel. That would have been a huge loss. We also, Nancy was a spear leader of this, the cheerleader of this. The Cooper Malera, the National Trust had decided they wanted to show how it could make money. And their intention was to basically tear down the barns and gut the interior of all the buildings and turn it all commercial. And so Nancy and the rest of the AMAP board struggled to try and stop that from going as far as it could have. Every time we don't get everything we want, but we do stop some major projects from going awry. So as she just mentioned, we also were able to keep the old jail in Salinas from being demolished, and so that's been a great save. And now we hope to guide the current board of the Monterey Museum to stop what their original intention was, is to tear down Pacific Street and build a new building, a contemporary building. And we just kind of got together and pointed out to them it was already on the historic register, and it was run by one of the most important architects and builders of the area, and there was no way that was going to happen. And reminded them if we can win against the Navy, the Catholic Church, and the National Trust, they better just back off. So anyway, so now the board election. You say there are two people who are,
Yes,
are
Denise
being.
and I, that's her.
All right. I think it's just a show of hands. Mimi and Denise are up for re-election this year, and all those in favor, raise your hands.
Aye.
Everybody, yes. They're wonderful members, so thank you very much. Now it's time for the Preservationist of the Year.
Nancy worked really beyond the call of duty on this project. I was actually sick for most of this project, so I was not involved myself. But she's going to make the award. She's going to make the award for the Pebble Beach Equestrian Coalition.
Well, this last year, I had the great pleasure and the great sorrow, eventually, of working with two wonderful ladies who came out of nowhere, it seemed, and wanted to save the 100-year-old Pebble Beach Equestrian Center. And Jeff and I had never even been there before, so we went to visit it. And we were just amazed at its beauty and how wonderful it was, and it had all of its original character still there. It was still in continual use for 100 years, and the horses were happy. I mean, it was just a wonderful place. And so we tried, We tried, we worked hard, they raised money. They were amazing. They got a GoFundMe going, they got money, donations from different people who had their horses there. They did press releases, they did everything imaginable. They raised money to hire a great historic consultant to write, what do you call that report? DPR. What is it? But they did everything they possibly could. We just couldn't beat Pebble Beach. And they moved as quick as they could get a permit and tore it down. So, Kirsten Stember, please come up here. We'd like to present you with our Preservationist of the Year Award for 2024. It was a wild 9 months, I think it was, or maybe it was only 7. But we really applaud your efforts, and we welcome you to our group, and we'd like to give you this award as Preservationist of the Year.
Thank you so much.
So, and can you give this to Laura? Laura was unable to be with us tonight because she was already had a trip planned, but we'll have lunch soon when she gets back. So thank you all very much. And I do have a binder full of all the press and pictures of the Equestrian Center out on the table. So I invite you to come and look at it if you're not familiar with it. Thank you.
It was amazing how quickly that effort came together. As I said, I was sort of out of it for most of the time, but I did hear what was going on. I just have one final comment. I want to thank everybody. I want to thank Carmel Art Association. But I know I'm speaking to the choir, but I don't know what information you get. But I think it's important that we at the local level recognize that preservation is based on the federal framework, which is being destroyed as we speak. And the National Register program is at risk. The National Park Service obviously is at risk. The GSA program of the New Deal art is being decimated. Today you probably saw that the Institute of Library and of Museum and Library Sciences is slated to sort of go away. And they're a really important funder of museums and things like digitization. So I just want to make sure that you understand. You read about these things in the paper at one level, but it goes way down and it will affect local people. I think, for instance, it's possible the Salinas survey is funded with federal money. It's indirect, but yeah, because you see the Historic Preservation Fund at the national level is distributed to states. And at least in Washington State, a lot of that goes for CLG grants. And so that's how it works. And I just want everybody to know that. So I'm not saying we can do anything right now. I'm not sure what it is. But I'm just like preaching to groups I'm at to let them know that it matters at our level. So that's all. So thank you very much. And I've asked Jeff to talk a little bit about the Art Association and about this building. You saw how wonderful the building is. So we're going to conclude with that, and then we can spend more time looking at the art. I hate to take people away from the art. I'm looking at it here. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, Mimi. So probably most of you know, our organization was founded nearly 100 years ago in 1927. And so we're coming up on our 100th anniversary. The building here is several decades older than that. It was originally Murphy House. It didn't include this room we're in now, but it did include the gallery to the south, which you can take a look at with the trusses and all of that. It's a big room, and artists were using it for a studio, and then things went awry a bit, and ended up the building was for sale, and we had some benefactors who helped us to buy it, and it's our building, and that's the reason we can still exist in this time. And so we're now in a struggle, which probably most of you are aware of, because right next door is a development that has been underway for 6 years. And the original developer drove pilings right next to our building, and it's on a sand dune. And so after our building shook like crazy for a week, and then it kind of settled down and hasn't moved again. But in the meantime, this wall, which is a poured-in-place concrete wall, dropped 2 inches. It's kind of sliding toward the pit. And you'll probably notice just a few cracks around, because we kept sealing them for a while and then we stopped. But we're now getting closer. The new development people, we're about to have a meeting with our engineers, their engineers, and make sure everything is on track for us getting this fixed. And then we're going to have a mediation with the original developer's insurance company. They keep, for some reason, stopping the mediation. They don't really want to pay anybody. And so been 6 years now, so it's looking like we're getting closer, and hopefully we'll have the funds to be able to fix this. So that's where things lay right now. We've been working at it like crazy for the full 6 years, and it looks like we're getting close to having it resolved. If you've got any questions, you can talk to me afterwards.
Yes, you know that lovely sheet that Sally put forth shows the Carmel Arts and Crafts Club founded in 1905.
Right.
Now, was that a continuation until then the Art Association was founded in 1927?
They were separate organizations.
Right.
And
So,
I think the Arts and Crafts Club was maybe gone by about 1924, or possibly the crafts portion longer and the fine art portion not till we were founded.
and the reason this was really, this was founded was because during the early years, in the 1920s and before, the Hotel Del Monte had a gallery space. And that was where all the artists showed and sold. But unfortunately, it kept burning down. And after it burned down, what was it?
24.
24, the second one.
This second one. There was no place for them to show and sell. So that's when they put this together and started the process. And the artists themselves all came, there was a large group of artists that came after the San Francisco earthquake. And that's what turned this really into a real center of art. Yes?
Laguna Beach had a lot to do with it too, because it was the first such gallery, and this came right after.
Right, and the same, well, certainly Jeannie Cannon, who was one of our founding members, was also a founding member of that. Yes?
Jeff, was the original structure someone's home?
Yes.
It was a studio.
And it was a studio. Yeah, it was a studio. And but it was pretty impressive. I've seen one picture of when it was the studio of an artist, and it had these huge crown moldings of wood that ran around that. They stripped all that off and put drop ceilings in before I arrived in the 1960s. And so that's now, we took all that off about 10 years ago. And so we've exposed the ceilings again and cleaned it all up.
Did MJ build the original house?
Yes.
Didn't know about that one, huh? I have a lot of
And there's, I mean, I can't believe they hid this really interesting modernist truss system,
Oh, yes.
which is wonderful. And what they did was they put a drop ceiling, but they left the borders open, which didn't make any sense because usually they drop the ceiling to try and reduce the heat loss. But then they put in various lighting systems over the years. So when you climbed up on a ladder and looked over the edge, there were 11 different lighting systems. Had it been abandoned, and 2 inches of dust on top of them. So we finally got that remedied. Yes.
Do you know what's going to happen next door
We have a
building-wise?
pretty good idea now. I've just this week gotten the plans and engineering for that building. And it's a, I don't know if you've been watching things in the news, but it's kind of 4 separate buildings that are different styles, all kind of historic styles. And there's walkways. Down in the lower part is a garage, and there's then a level that is commercial, and then there's a couple of levels of apartments and condos.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Jeff.
I have one question, Jeff. When you
Yes.
were talking about the problems you have with next door, are you working hand in hand with the Carmel Foundation? Because they have the same problem.
They have the same or worse.
Yeah.
They were considered to be a health and safety issue because the stairs fell off and one part of their building dropped 6 inches. And so they got kind of priority from the city. So they decided that they were going to go it alone. We asked if they would like to join us. And for the first 5 years, they said, no, we're going at it. They were very aggressive, but they also spent a heck of a lot of money and were in the same point as us 5 years later. So, then they started wanting to talk with us again. So, but yeah, they are in the same position.
Did
Except
they
I
have to
think
move those people out that have those apartments that are facing?
one of them they did. But they were in the position where, because they kind of got priority because it was a life and health safety issue, they were able to work with the insurance company that was the first developer's insurance company. And it looks like they've made some kind of deal and they're going to be taken care of. Whereas we have been kind of put to the side for some time. We're hoping to get that resolved soon.
And Jeff did most of the design work on all of this room and.
Well, yeah, they didn't have, it had been, everything had been done by volunteers as inexpensively as possible for probably 50 years. And so when I got here, I said, no. And so we went about, every 5 years there is a historic show here, be coming up in a couple of years, in which we accept donations of our historic members or donations and consignments. And so it's a very big deal because most of the major artists of California have been members here. And so there are people whose works go for $500,000, $1 million. And so people, if they decide they want to access a piece, they will call up the place and they'll make some kind of arrangement. And then during the historic show, almost all of the gallery is taken with that work. And that's what pays for our major reconstruction. So, because we just break even normally, but with those shows we can bring in $200,000 or $300,000, and that pays for a lot of work. Because we had to redo everything.
Well, thank you all very much. Now, enjoy some of Denise's cookies and some water lemonade and some artwork.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.